It has
Yeah,
more like
they've
old cop
just kind of
shows.
all, as a group, converted to this is normal. It's like, well, if you're not paying premium,
Uh-huh.
then we can just shove this everywhere. It's just like, what is the value of eyeballs on a Doritos ad? Like, when do we get to we just keep reinventing things to sell ads against? Like, what output is this actually producing?
Doesn't
Uh,
matter. It doesn't matter.
I know it's like mythological gains, you know.
Uh-huh. It's always in the future. It's fine.
Yeah, it's a projection of some future return on value.
It's it's it, it's the kind of messaging that allows you to lead a corporation because next year is going to be our biggest year yet because of this new gizmo, and the gizmo could be one
The
of several things.
gizmo an ad.
Well, I mean, well, but it's the it's here's where I like the games industry because it's always sort of a canary in the coal mine. The consolidation we saw in gaming the last 3 to 5 years is now taking place in streaming video, right? Well, we're gonna have a great show. Let's go. Punch it.
Welcome to Unboxing, play and profit for the gaming curious. I'm Lane Nooney.
En I'm Joost van Dreunen.
And we're here digging deep on why games matter in today's economy. On the docket today, Friday, December 19th, the streaming wars are turning into the studio wars. We've got the latest on Netflix's $80 billion bid to absorb Warner Brothers, a deal that could reshuffle not just Hollywood, but gaming too. What does this mean for WB Games? Is Netflix about to go from a mobile publisher to a AAA overlord? And why does it feel like nobody's excited for any of this? Then, in the spirit of legacy media cosplay, we turn to the Game Awards, where Claire Obscure Expedition 33 pulled off a Titanic-level sweep. Is this a sign of artistic maturity or just the industry crowning a pretty little life raft while everything else sinks? All that and more with your two very award-deserving co-hosts, but first, we've got some catching up to do. All right, musical interlude over. You shake your head at me every time I read it on the docket.
It's just there's such verve, it's such a good like intro. You do such a good job with us. I want to listen to this episode now. I wonder what it's going to be about.
Right? What is it going to be about? What are we going to talk about?
First, like how is it? So the semester's over, and
Oh
you
my god!
are
I mean, the
prepping.
semester's not over. My final takes place on Friday, like the
That's
day
right.
this podcast drops.
Oh,
Keaton, our producer, has to grade all 50 of those finals. I still have to grade 47 papers. I'm trying to get out. I'm trying to do any grading, and I can't because I have all these dumb fucking meetings I have to be at related to my director of the undergrad program job. And then that means it backs up other shit, which then backs up grading.
and then you have a month off. Yeah.
I mean, like, except that there's a bunch of other shit I have to do. Like,
I'm joking. So do you grade digitally, like on a screen, or with a pen? And
no,
then
I make them hand in their papers printed out because I don't want to I spend too much of my life looking at screens.
I'm
So
about
they
to
have
switch.
to submit it digitally and they have to submit it in hard copy.
I'm about to switch. It's been digital all the way. So they have this software platform at NYU, Brightspace, which is,
I like that you said that word like it barely ever comes out of your mouth.
it's
Like, you mean like the course management system, like the CMS?
Yeah,
That everyone uses?
It's whatever. Academic Salesforce. Get out of here. None of it
Yeah,
works.
it's exactly that, right?
It's
Designed about as well too.
I dislike those systems immediately. It's me, I know, because everybody uses them, but one of my former TAs figured out for students to like upload everything in there directly, and it's kind of useful, but it's just a lot of clicking around, and I always mess it up. So, but I think I'm
Brightspace
gonna
somehow in Brightspace it takes like 8 clicks where 2 should do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like, why did I have to click on a a tab to open a module, to open a folder, to click that yes, I am sure, to like upload a PDF, and you're going to make me click the button to upload it and make sure I approve it, and then you're going to ask me to save it. Like what if one button did three of those things?
Lane, we're about to have an entire episode in the new season where we're going to go low tech and analog only because the end is nigh when it comes to tech and Yoast. Like there's too many
Yeah.
buttons. I spent the
I
whole morning
I
yelling.
with the exception of sending announcements and grades, I only use Google Drive.
Hmm.
So I stopped. So readings are in Google Drive, assignment sheets are in Google Drive, the syllabus is in Google Drive. Um, it's easier to update stuff. I don't have to re-upload things every time I revise them.
Hmm.
It's just a nightmare. Anyway, blah
That's
blah blah. Nobody cares about Brightspace. What is new for? So we are 1 week out from Christmas, right? Is that right? God, it's
Christ.
we are.
Yes.
It's Christmas Eve,
Yes,
Wednesday next week.
it do. I'm excited. Did
Yeah,
you get a tree? I still have to get my tree.
we talked about this last time.
Oh, you're already ready. That's right. You already got all this stuff.
Well, I got the tree. My if you see me pressing on my neck, it's because I'm sore from icing cookies.
He's so dedicated. You
I'm
don't
just
strike
like,
me as a traditionalist who like really holds on to these things, but you really put a lot of effort into it.
yeah, yeah, and my
I
decaying body into
Yeah, well, that's the sacrifice, right? It's the body of Lane.
yeah. So there were 97 cookies. There's a few less because there's a couple I fucked up, and then when you fuck them up, you have to eat them. So
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that. That's fantastic. Well, I'm excited. I
because
can't.
you're
I mean,
coming this year, that's what
I'm
I understand.
yes, I've already polished my boots, so I'm coming.
This will be a first.
You know, and likely the last. I don't know. We'll see. But if there's not enough cookies, then I can't stay too long. If I have to fight other people over the cookies. No, we're coming. I Because this year I wanted to do a little bit more holiday cheer too.
Well,
I
that's what
do.
this party's known for. So
New York has been not has been it hasn't been dark, but it's been very cold. And ever since they built this whole new structure next to my office, my entire view and therefore sunlight has been gone. So I need to look for entertainment, lights elsewhere. So that's one of the reasons. Also, I'm very curious to meet the rest of your crew. The
like,
other
who are my friends? Is
the
that your
other
question?
half of Lane. What's that going to be about? And
Yeah,
and Janelle said like, yeah, let's go. So that's what we're doing.
amazing.
What's it? So okay, so that's the holidays. That's the grading. Are you traveling?
I
Because
am. I'm traveling after. So I'm here for Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, a couple days after, and then I take off on the 28th. I fly to San Francisco. I meet
mm,
up with three friends. We get in a car and we drive to the Mojave Desert, and we spend a week there
ooh,
in
is
a
that?
house.
Oh, okay. Just in a car in the desert seems.
Yeah, we just pitch a tent, and then no, we've rented this kind of absurdist this house that looks like the front of the Millennium Falcon. It's just like like the entire. It's like a half circle, and the circle part is just all window, like floor to ceiling. It's like one floor, and the entire house is just like bathed in sunlight.
Oh,
Um,
good for you. And it's gonna be 80 degrees or something.
yeah, yeah, it'll be something like that. We're gonna sit. We made sure primary requirement is we always rent a place with a hot tub. So we're gonna play video games, watch movies, have our
This is
coffee
like
in
a
the hot tub.
tradition.
Yes, yeah, we've done this for about 5 years now. Different places. We've been
Right
to
on.
Joshua Tree, Sea Ranch, Napa Valley, Colorado, Lake Tahoe. Yeah, yeah.
That
We
sounds
are a
amazing.
well-traveled group. We know everyone's weird preferences. You know,
So you got the Maltese, whatever. Bring extra cookies, obviously,
yeah.
or a ham. I don't know. And then so you cook and everything, or is it more like you order in for a week?
No, no, we cook. We cook. We will do what we call the big shop. Whenever we get to the town that we're in, we'll find the Walmart or the giant, whatever the giant place is.
I can
Um,
imagine like that whole joint is like, who are these people
one
buying
person's
everything?
running on, and everyone's eating like their parents are out of town for the weekend,
Yes.
so like we all regress to children, like one person's running off to buy Wonder Bread and somebody else is
This is my personal cake, and this is the
yeah,
shared cake. There's two
yeah, like each of us are allowed like two wild card snacks that we will all split, economically, like
wild card snacks. That's pretty good.
yeah, it's
I
like,
like
do
this.
you want Halo Cool Ranch Doritos every day for 6 days? Yeah, that's what it turns into.
Ooh,
So I
that's good.
always order a Zingerman. This will be a bit of product placement for the podcast. A Zingerman's
Mm.
um, like Christmas like charcuterie board. Zingerman's is like a local business run out of Wisconsin, I think. It's one of the
The
upper
cheese people.
Midwest. Yeah,
Well
yeah.
done.
It's either Minnesota or Wisconsin or Michigan or something like that. But they do a killer kind of
It's a
all
blur of white people
just
stuff.
it's like the part of the country that looks like a hand, whatever's happening over there.
Potato
Um,
related cheese.
yeah. So there's always the purchase of the Zingermans, the ornate laying out of the
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Zingermans that just exists, that is just like out, 24 hours a day and gets slowly refreshed. Yeah, yeah.
That sounds really nice.
It's very
I love
bacchanalian,
a good
the whole
board.
thing.
I love a good
Yeah.
charcuterie board.
Are you guys going anywhere for the holidays, New Year's or Christmas?
Pennsylvania for a beat for family, and then I have a bunch of friends from out of town in town, so that
Hmm.
makes life easy. So then there's the usual dinner parties, stand around, drink expensive wine, eat a charcuterie board. You judge people at my life stage. You judge other people based on their boards. What are they presenting me with? What kind of grapes are these? Are these what kind of lowbrow grapes? Are these Walmart grapes? No, 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 no. I don't know if they're bad. I'm just making this up, but it's just like it comes around a lot. It's a lot of fancy cheese and like salty meats, which I like that. I like that because the sit down thing that some I see some other adults do, where you go to somebody's house and then they make you sit down for like 4 hours next to the same person. I find that a little like intense. Like I like to roam and like switch conversations, and so this is a good season for that. And
Yeah.
then New Year's, usually there's a big party, but this year that's a little disorganized. So we'll see what comes of it. It might just be home with the kids, and then I fly to Madrid a few days after that. So, you know, when you're on your way back to New York, I'm on my way out.
Okay, yeah, because I'll come back after the new year, and then I'm going to Magfest,
Ooh,
um, the Music and Games Festival down in DC. That'll be happening the second week of January. Giving a talk there with pod friend Phil Salvador,
ah,
and some other folks. But I'll catch you up on that when I'm back. Yost, we've got so much to talk about today,
let's go.
including the fact that I finally watched the Game Awards, or as much of them as I could bear. Um, should we get
So
into
you
this episode?
let's get this popping.
All right. So you know, I got a lot of questions for you, but first, just to catch up our listeners to what's been going on, though hopefully none of the details here will have shifted too much by the time this episode drops, right? It's been all the kerfluffle, this
Hmm.
kind of Netflix Warner Brothers deal, right? Maybe you've heard about it. So here we are again, another week, another media merger so massive it feels like a parody. Netflix has announced plans to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery's streaming and studio assets for roughly $80 billion. A move that, if approved, would swallow up some of the last remaining legacy media infrastructure into the belly of a Silicon Valley platform. There is also a bid happening for Paramount to try and buy Warner Brothers. Um, there's a bit of a kerfluffle there, but Netflix seems pretty confident. They seem confident enough that they sent me an email talking about what's going to happen when they acquire Warner Brothers. Not like me personally, but to this respect.
The CEO
Netflix
of
is like, we better
Netflix
make
would
sure
like
this
to
bitch
speak to
knows
Lane,
what's happening.
please, and
Yeah,
explain himself.
yeah, yeah. So what's at stake here? Not just HBO, Warner Brother Pictures, the Max streaming platform, but also WB Games, which is home to major studios like Rocksteady, NetherRealm, TT Games, Avalanche. They're responsible for Mortal Kombat, Arkham, Lego Star Wars, Hogwarts Legacy. And yet, almost no one is talking about what Netflix would plan to do with all this gaming goldmine, right? The investor call barely acknowledged WB Games, right? It's like a rounding error on their charts. It's perceived as such a small part of the value.
Hmm.
And Netflix's current game strategy is mostly like mobile ports, party games, subscriber freebies. This seems very far away from the kind of multi-billion-dollar console franchises that Warner owns. There's been lots of red flags about this, right? From like Netflix has made it pretty clear that it wants to see the death of the movie theater, right? It wants us all in our homes, not interacting with anyone around us, eyeballs screwed to the AI slot pump. Um, this is there is the kind of hostile bid from Paramount, backed by good old Jared Kushner and some Gulf states, just to make this a little livelier. But what does this mean for the industry? How do we read this move, right? Yost, is there anything you would add to this kind of big picture summary before we get into what this means for the game industry?
It's notably a interesting moment to happen at the same time that they sold off Spryfox. Spryfox was one of our acquisitions in 2020, which was sort of
One
a
of Netflix's acquisitions.
Netflix's acquisitions that was a cornerstone in their casual, indie game category. You know, David Eatery and I forget his co-founder's name now, but it's they are respected. They're sort of like these legacy companies. Netflix acquires them. This is going to be real. Look at them. They're having real talent. You know, that goes on for a while, and I guess it didn't take him where they wanted to go, and so they sold it off a day before the announcement of this deal comes through. And so those
Oh.
two ships passing at the same time, I think is interesting because it's notable because why would you do that? Why, if you're going to make an $80 billion bid on all of Warner Brothers, would you also sell back the company to its original founders and get basically out of gaming? So I think that sets the tone. But they got a little snowed under with the headlines, right? I think that was one observation that got lost easily.
So right, but like there's nothing I'm sort of missing in the big picture as like a media industry's kind of general acquisition, not just talking about games, but like right, like the general summary I have here is correct. Yeah?
Correct.
Yeah.
You did good.
Um
Good
so
job.
so I really just wanted you to praise me.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Um
That's okay.
it's not like you get the questions in advance or anything.
Give away my
uh
whole shtick. Okay, fine. That's how we're gonna play it.
so like okay, so they sell off Sprite, and do you think that's like two arms of the company not even being aware of what the other's doing? Like how much do you think and also, so like where does WB Games fit into this acquisition, right? Does Netflix want to be in this big budget space? Like what do you think is likely to happen here?
Um, what's likely to happen is that Netflix will get its way. We'll talk about Paramount in a second, but the deal will go through with some kind of pulling and pushing and pulling. And so, at a high level, all eyes are on the streaming video. I think that that's
Yeah.
the largest component, and therefore the only component that matters. Everything else, including games, will therefore be much less important. And then it's just a question of whether or not they're going to sell it off or not, right? And so usually these deals involve some amount of debt. That's the case here too. I believe it's $23 billion of borrowed money,
Huh.
if I'm not, but I could be wrong. But regardless, like now they have payments, and so they're going to probably look for some assets they can sell off, saying like, well, is this accretive? Does whatever division and or including games make sense for us to drive revenue, or are we better off just taking all of the games asset, we take all of Mortal Kombat and all this other stuff that we do, and we'll just be a platform like a front end, but all the IP will just sell off to whoever wants it because we can't uh, make any money with this, and we can use the billion, 2 billion, 3 billion that they would fetch for it to pay off some of their debt. So That's a big question for me. But overall, it's really about the streaming video components and the fact that they now have, Batman in their portfolio as well as Stranger Things and so on. So it expands greatly their IP library.
Yeah. Do you have an over under on the likelihood that the kind of AAA console stuff gets put on the block?
That's a good one. I say it's likely that they'll sell it off. So like a 60% chance right now.
Ooh,
So more
percent
likely.
poly market. All right.
The thing is that they've explored in recent years. And the reasoning is this: in the recent years, Netflix has explored the full range of different styles of gaming, casual, double A, triple A, and the latter just hasn't worked for them. They're not a dedicated studio. In fact, I could spend an hour talking about the reasons why dedicated publishers are the only ones that could do AAA productions. Dedicated publishers like Take Two. The moment it becomes a subsidiary of a larger parent company, let's say Activision Blizzard owned by Xbox, owned by Microsoft, it just deprioritizes the whole thing. And then while it's probably sold as innovative new thinking and space to breathe, at the same, it's usually just crappier. It's a loss of quality because it's not their livelihood, right? Vertically integrated businesses are less capable of capturing value because they don't have to try so hard. Whereas if it's all you do, aka Take Two Interactive or Ubisoft or City Project Red or any of them, then that is the focus of your effort and your whole team's effort. And so it's less corporate. For Netflix, that seems to be the case too. They had some effort. They bought a AAA studio. They tried. They have the IP. Stranger Things speaks to the imagination enough. It's famous enough that you could build something out of it, at least something like a Hogwarts Legacy type of version of something, make $1 billion and point at it and say, we did well, we should keep doing this. They haven't in 5 years. So the fact that they now have all this IP is probably not going to compel them any other way. I think, in other words, what they're more interested in is making series and movies around Mortal Kombat than pushing out
Hmm.
the games release. So that's
So,
that's my 60% reasoning. We'll see. They'll
yeah.
keep the
I
the,
mean,
the,
it's
the
almost like
casual
you're
stuff.
saying that consolidation of the game industry into the larger media industries is a net bad.
That's yeah. I wouldn't know if I would put it that way because it's sort of on a case by case basis. But it is that during the pandemic and at the end of the pandemic, everybody started aggregating, and so the consolidation that's been taking place, like you can point to the increase in market concentration and the lack of
Yes.
real competition in so many ways has not contributed to a lot of additional value in terms of shareholder value or consumer benefit in that sense. And so what they look for is on the short term distribution innovations, like how do we take this IP, push it out, come up with new pricing models, like add tiers for Game Pass and couch co-op for Netflix and Amazon, all these kinds of things, and the rest they sell off to recoup some of the money they spent consolidating. So yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
So, if we look at this from the bottom up, right? If you're a developer at Rocksteady or Avalanche, what are you thinking right now?
If I look, yeah, as an employee of any of those, I wouldn't be worried about my job just yet because there's no short-term incentive for Netflix to sell it off right away. They can do that, but it's not really a huge concern. And the franchises are strong enough that there would be a fair price for it. And they would probably want to keep the whole team. Now, the only consideration in that sense would be like, what if they spin off as independents? I think that's so. Let's say some private equity or investor comes in saying like, "I'll give you money for this, and then we're going to build the team. We're going to whatever let go of 12% of overhead, and we're going to put it out on its own." So now these studios become their own independent entities. I think that's a scenario where I would look out for my job. Until then, it's unless it's being rolled up into something larger, it's probably fine.
For
Nobody's gonna
the
mess with Mortal Kombat. Like that's just
Yeah,
not a
yeah, yeah,
thing.
for the short to medium term. So,
Yeah.
right, but of course, like, an acquisition, how long would you anticipate an acquisition like this takes? And do you think there will be any meaningful antitrust opposition to this? I mean, there part of it is this weird thing where Trump has threatened to kind of I mean, Trump says many things. Who knows how many of them are real? But he's made kind of statements to the effect of he would rather see his buddy Larry Ellison at Paramount get this win rather than Netflix. So
Hmm.
he has made ghost suggestions of intervention there. This obviously seems also like a antitrust issue, but
Hmm.
like that wing of the government is fairly neutered as well, or basically can be bought.
Hmm.
Um, like what, like how long would you foresee this taking, and do you think there will be any actually productive or meaningful opposition to this merger? Like, I haven't seen, even when Microsoft was going to buy Xbox, there was like some capacity to
Hmm.
hype that on a PR level. This, it's like everyone just agrees, well, this is just more shit. Like I feel like I cannot find a read on this from anyone besides company CEOs who thinks
Hmm.
this is going to bring something cool to the market. Um, right? Like I just like I've never seen anything people be less enthusiastic about.
Including you.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a surprise, but you know, um, there's no generative enthusiasm about this that I have been able to find at any level.
Hmm.
And what do you think about? But yeah, how long of a pathway is it to acquisition? And
Hmm.
and do you think there's anything that will kind of um, meaningfully forestall it?
Yeah, it's a good one. The not because of the specifics of the deal, but it speaks to this larger universe, right? So the environment for large transactions has shifted notably, and so there's two elements that deserve some attention. So one of them is it will probably take like 12 to 18 months because it's just the size of the deal and it has to be sort of investigated. Um, in principle, you know, I suspect that there's going to be some pushback from the US government, but not for the reasons that you expect. So
What are the
CNN,
reasons that we would expect?
well, so I mean, Trump has already pointed out, so like, oh, CNN should be sold off separately, right? And so he might throw a bunch of sand in the engine of this acquisition by saying, I don't like CNN, so you have to get rid of it. He's also put out two lawsuits against the New York Times and now the BBC for saying things he didn't like or alleged slander. We'll see. Multi-billion-dollar. So like he is a real stickler for media outlets that don't sing his song, and CNN is part of that, right, of that universe. And so in other words, that might be something that Netflix may not want to concede on, and then that becomes a problem. Which in general, would that affect games? Not at all. Would that if impact the deal? It might be a concession they have to make, which is very odd. And it's not. There's no real prerequisite. How I say like precedent for that. Like at what point did the U.S. government, particularly the president, insist that they would like divest a branch of an organization so that otherwise he would veto the merger. It's like an odd thing that he can sort of individually shape the media landscape to his whim. And the other part of it is that Paramount, up until yesterday, so I guess when this got up until Tuesday this week, had the participation and involvement of Jared Kushner through his affinity fund, which you recall was also part of the EA leverage buyout, part of the
Mm-hmm.
funders there. That is a connection to Saudi money, simply put. He stepped out of that deal, and
Is that as of this morning on Wednesday?
as of Tuesday, yesterday,
Okay.
so 3 days on the day of broadcasting it. But that deserves a little bit more information. So Paramount offered a hostile takeover,
Yeah.
right? And that was funded by this thing that involved Jared Kushner, and part of it was a premium on top of the share price. A hostile takeover bid very simply means instead of me asking you to sell your company to me, I go to your shareholders and then gobble up their shares at a premium, saying like, you give me your piece, and then everybody else owns it up until I have majority, whatever that means, say 51%, and then I'm going to greenlight the deal by my own company. So, in other words, it's not up to CEO so much, it's up to the shareholders. And you can do that. It's a very aggressive bid. That's why it's called hostile. It takes a lot of phone calls, obviously. Um, but if you
I mean,
give
we've
people a
all
premium, it's
seen
okay.
Succession, you know.
So you understand the principle, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's all that, but in real time, and you end up with a premium. But the sort of sweetener of that deal was also the implication was, well, we have Jared on deck, and he's going to help get this signed and sealed right quick, right? He's just going to make a phone call and it's going to be done, as opposed to Netflix, which won't necessarily have the buy-in of the Trump administration. So those two things, I think, make this a very different transaction, very different than the regulatory environment you otherwise find. Like, there's not going to be some Lena Khan version of let's sue them into oblivion and see what we can find, and basically stall it and and beat them for some concessions. It's going to be much more this, you know, sort of favoritism
Yeah, this
with
sort of
officials.
mafia-esque kind
It's
of
yeah.
way of doing business.
So in other words, this is the point I was alluding to at the beginning. Is like the structure and the character of the deal tells you exactly where we are
Hmm.
politically,
Hmm.
socially, and otherwise. It's a good
Ugh.
vignette. Yeah, I mean, I didn't care about it last week, so I don't really care about it this week. It's sort of like, I didn't think Stranger Things was that good so far. I'm still working my way through it, but inevitably these media companies, they uh, do this, right? Warner Brothers has been bought and sold repeatedly over the last couple of years. Every 2 years, Warner WB Games has been on the chopping block for years. That's it's always been hanging by a thread because it doesn't fit. Like I mean, they had that. Remember, we did that whole episode about Hogwarts Legacy, which was this sort of rare success that they suddenly had, despite the fact that they have all this amazing IP. So we're not. I mean, while you want to be respectful, at the same time, this is not some blowout business that's making everybody so rich that they can't go around. It's like, yeah, it's sort of a nice to have, like, oh yeah, we also have this, as opposed to this is core to our business. So it's going to get the attention proportionally. So that's my take on it. I don't know. Are you going to buy Netflix shares now? Are you going to participate in the market?
I
Are you going
mean,
to
you'd have
invest?
to imagine that I had shares of anything to answer
Well,
that
I mean,
question.
it's Vanguard, which is one of the big investors, one of the fund managers for NYU staff.
Yeah, I got I think all
They're a
my
big
money out of
investor.
that. I put it all in index funds.
Okay,
Um,
look at you, right on. So it's
uh,
interesting, But what's the feeling that you get when you hear of these large transactions? Is this just like more cronyism? Is this
yeah,
like, how do you
this
read
is
this?
more like let's take one dime and another dime and see if we can make 25 cents.
Hmm.
And like it doesn't feel like the Warner Brothers commands something like 20% of the filmic releases in theaters.
Mm.
This will, the head of Netflix has been explicit about believing that went on this whole kind of conversational jaunt about how there's no real difference in watching a film in a cinema versus at home, and his son watched Lawrence of Arabia on his phone, and like like
Hmm. Hmm.
you're just like, these people don't actually like art is like what is like the primary like they don't have any thoughts about media actually, right? If it isn't about like how like to them it's like, if it is it a zero and a one, oh, we
Uh
can shit it to your phone, like that's all they care about.
huh. That's short for distribution.
Yeah, yeah, that's
That's
like that's it,
no, it's everything. So
like
let me.
the emperor has no clothes here, guys, and I think
Mm,
the film industry, I think the people who make film see
mhm,
this very clearly, right? There's a lot of concern about this kind of consolidation, what they're going to shut down, the end of theatrical release, or the continued winnowing away of that as a viewing experience.
mhm,
And there's a lot of, I would say, kind of, network effects or externalities to continuing this form of enclosure, right? Where it's just
mhm,
like, all we want is you in your home staring at a bunch of screens that we are blasting ads at you
mhm.
through, you know?
Interesting. Yeah,
It's like you can't pause a show on Netflix now without getting an ad. It's like worse than cable TV.
really?
Yeah.
You get an ad nowadays?
Yeah.
Even for the paid one, or maybe I have just a
I
rich
mean, well,
person.
you're paying no matter what, right? Netflix
Uh-huh.
isn't free, but on the cheapest tier,
Hmm.
they'll put an ad literally anywhere. So you pause your what you're watching and you'll get an ad.
No way. Um, I mean, I guess I knew that. I mean, that's the case of Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
It has
Yeah,
more like
they've
old cop
just kind of
shows.
all as a group converted to this as normal. It's like, well, if you're not paying premium,
Uh-huh.
then we can just shove this everywhere, right? And like it's just like, what is the value of eyeballs on a Doritos ad? Like, when do we get to the we just keep reinventing things to sell ads against, as if this, like, what output is this actually producing?
Doesn't
uh,
matter. It doesn't matter.
I
Wha-
know it's like mythological gains, you know.
Uh-huh. It's always in the future. It's fine.
Yeah, it's a projection of some future return on value.
It's it's it,
um,
it's the kind of messaging that allows you to lead a corporation, because next year is going to be our biggest year yet because of this new gizmo, and the gizmo could be one
the
of several
gizmo
things.
an ad.
Well, I mean, so well, but it's like, it's here's where I like the games industry, because it's always sort of a canary in the coal mine. The consolidation we saw in gaming the last 3 to 5 years is now taking place in streaming video, right? Where you see these real big deals, like 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 blowout like about $100 billion offer, $108 billion offer from Paramount. I mean, come on, these are landmark acquisitions that happened in gaming in 2023, like a cool 3 years ago. So gaming at the time, you could say it was all about content innovation, building up content libraries and like economies of scale. And since then, of course, it's cooled off. Like they can't charge as much, they can't sell as much, and so they're looking to get smarter. So now they're starting to integrate distribution innovations like pricing models and new channels and new formats for people to reach more people, to do advertising, etc. So they've switched over from content to distribution. Streaming video is in the opposite cycle, or maybe in sort of the opposite to it, in that they were doing distribution innovation then. How can we spread this out to more channels?
Yeah,
And they've now reached this moment of content innovation where they're just looking for economies of scale, building a larger catalog, and figuring that out. And they're going to find, of course, that that's going to lead to a decline. And guess what? Then again, we see distribution innovation. Wow, who would have thought this? And so, but you have to constantly come up with a horse for me to bet on, right? And so it's very cyclical,
yeah,
because we're back to pay TV and broadcast TV, and this happened before in radio and music, and so it's not new.
yeah.
It's cyclical. It's just a
And it's
matter of
not
guessing the
innovation
cycle.
either, like
It's not really. It's like 80% the same, right?
yeah,
It's a What gets lost along the way, I think, in things like streaming video is that there is, I mean, they do this now with sports events, but like synchronized or shared viewing, that is, I think, increasingly at a premium. And that's the case for news and sports, really. Like major releases, people don't care like that. Like you can do, was it Paul Logan fight Mike Tyson? And like people came out for that, and people signed up for Netflix because of that. It was like a huge driver. But so the ritual of watching with others, that's kind of what gets lost in this, because those are the few moments that you actually see that. The rest of the viewing is very asynchronous and solitary. And I think that's probably why the comments of the Netflix executives against movie theaters kind of vexes people. I love going to movies. I don't go enough to sustain it economically, obviously, but and I understand that that business is in a lot of need. But that's in the end, I think we'll see a return to all those things, and then Netflix is going to look like, well, why don't you? So what happened with Amazon here? I'll predict this now, so you can write this down. Amazon was all digital e-commerce, and then bought Whole Foods. Hey, we need a storefront, right? It's going to be premium. It's going to be the best ever, but we need real estate. Netflix is going to do the same thing. It's going to go all digital until they can't, and then they're going to launch Netflix theaters. They already own a few for like major events,
it's
but
like
they're
watching a movie in your own home but bigger.
yeah, mean, this is
Oh, put the gun in my mouth right now. Jeez.
it's well,
All
this is
right.
also a function of like how terrible movie things are, but that's another episode. But it's the it's so it's just cyclical. Is my point.
Yeah. I mean, I
Okay,
only go to the Alamo Draft House.
that's why it's so gross there.
Or a small, I went to the Angelica after several years of only going to the Alamo Draft House, and I sat in a normal theater chair, and or in a art house theater chair, and I was like, "What's happening?" Like, I was like, I'm a small person. I
Mhm.
work my lats, but I'm still a small person, and I felt like I was just like,
I have to throw that in there every time.
where's
The beach
where's the
is
cup
that way.
holder?
You're in
uh,
row six.
I was like, I can't. How does a regular sized person fit in the movies? Like, what's going?
I like that.
All right.
Speaking of the movies,
Speaking of the movies, so if Netflix is gonna swallow Warner Brothers, cool, 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 and dragging WB Games along for the ride, we can think about what does this mean for the kinds of games that get made, how they're valued, right? And we've been talking about this kind of distribution power, who owns the pipes, who controls platforms, but kind of industry recognition is also part of this equation, right? The Game Awards happened last week, right? And so we have this kind of irony at the exact moment gaming is kind of continuing on this march to sort of emulate a Hollywood award show structure. Netflix is busy eating Hollywood, right? What are we actually aspiring to? There should be some kind of inherent tension here. I think it kind of gets lost in the Geoff Keighley of it all. But
in the Jeff of it all,
in the Jeff of it, I know you can't put a G on the front of that name and expect me to say Jeff. Like, I'm sorry.
like
Jeff
I grew up in in the Netherlands. Like you'd have a name like that, you'd say Geelf.
Health.
Yeah, it's like, but so
Could
like
that
you,
be our innovation?
it's
Health Keely.
Geelf kid.
Joost, do you watch them live, right?
I did, mostly by accident. It's a bit
Yeah.
like, oh right, that's on tonight. Like I don't make popcorn and invite friends to my house. It's more, oh, let me watch this sort of passively and see if it pulls
Yeah.
me in.
Yeah. So how did you feel?
I liked it. I'm opposite from you. I've been critical and suspicious of the Game Awards for years because because I'm right, and the reason is because it's mostly commercials, and so
Yeah.
and this year it's 750,000 for a 30-second spot as
Yeah.
a
I was like,
publisher.
oh, this really is just like I had always heard the critiques, I'd seen the clips or whatever. I
Mhm.
was like, they just make a commercial every other thing they do.
It's a carousel of advertisements, and so you just like this doesn't have the cachet of like an actual award ceremony.
I was gonna
It's
say that this is not. Is there any other media industry that conducts their awards in this fashion?
Mhm. That's an excellent question, and the answer would be no.
Is no, right?
I mean,
I mean, I haven't watched the country music awards, but I suspect, this is not happening at the Oscars or the Emmys or um, what else is there? The
say adult
Grammys,
entertainment. Say adult
adult,
entertainment.
adult entertainment.
I don't like so
What, the Pornhub Awards? What are you talking about?
I don't know what that is. It's the it's but it's true that there is a degree to which it emulates other things for a while and then it becomes its own. And I felt this year the Game Awards showed a different future than more of the same, sort of a like watered down version of what the Golden Globes is,
How
and
did it
a
do
little
that
less.
for
So
you?
it was more of a variety show. There was a lot more talking. They had a lot more talent on stage. It's not just these nerdy developers, which deserve to be there. Don't get me wrong. It's just like, is that fun to watch? Oh, great! Here's another middle-aged white guy stumbling through his words to say thank you. it's just not very entertaining to watch. Like what the Oscars bring is like, here is this icon from a news business or whatever, from like
Or
a
like
producer.
even just people who know how to be on stage,
Right, like
right?
that they
Like
know to
like
fold their
they
hands and
they they
speak to the crowd.
understand how to speak to a camera.
Yeah,
Yeah, a little bit of media training, you know.
just take an afternoon. Just, I mean, come on, you spent 6 years making a game, spend an hour like just getting your teeth whitened. I don't know, something, and it's the it's
I
just a
was
proof.
gonna say, I was gonna say, I was like, all this money, and we can't get Jeff Keighley a Crest White Strip. Like
Uh,
what?
I wasn't referring to Jeff, but
Oh,
run
I,
it.
I was like, girl,
Now,
what?
Jeff is
Like,
TV 101. Like he comes from Spike TV. You remember this? Like
oh, is that
he's.
does that explain it? And
Yeah, I mean, you know this too. It's. I think that there's sort of a culture in which this started, and that has shifted. Like the business practices, the value sets, the sort of identity and self-image that gamers and the games industry held for decades is changing. And the Game Awards is one of those surface areas where you see that happen in real time.
how
And
do you
so,
see that changing, and how is that present in the Game Awards? I'm just not sure. I'm
well, so
following.
the Game Awards used to be, look, we're just like film and music and TV. We're also serious business because we emulate award shows like them. And here is the best that we have to offer as a culture business. And aren't we cool too? And so it was always trying to emulate and look like and buddy up with other forms of entertainment to sort of be taken just as serious. The games industry over the last few years, I feel, has come into its own right, into its own character and self-esteem. And so now you see Lenny Kravitz and Jason Momoa come to stage and say, "Hey, I'm happy to be here. This is my first time I'm voice acting. This is exciting. We're promoting the movie for what is it, Street Fighter. I'm Blanca. Isn't that cool?" And so they now leverage, just like Keanu Reeves kind of pioneered a few years ago, the relationship with the games industry as a whole new channel to build their own celebrity and their own sort of image. But they realize that that's where the audience is, and the games industry is finally kind of leaning into that. So, do you have nerdy directors in film? Absolutely, in the same way that you have dorky directors in gaming. But they now also understand that they have an out, like a front of the house and a back of the house, and the front of the house is getting a little bit more self-secure. That's what's
But
changed for me.
wouldn't that actually mean more of leaning into the stardom provided by other media industries?
See, but they now come to our party. We don't go to their party. To put it in those
Well, they
terms.
don't want us at their party. There's
Not
nothing for us to do at their party.
exactly.
It would seem like there's a counter reading here, which is like we require them for relevance, right?
They, yeah,
Miss Piggy was on. I did not stick around enough to discover what the Miss Piggy reveal is. Maybe you could clear that up for me. But
there was a song.
oh, that was
That's
it.
what I got. Yeah, I mean, I tapped out after like 2.5 hours. I mean, this is the reason I don't go, because you're just like in there for like 3 4 hours and you can't leave. No thanks.
Like, if anything, to me, that seems like to be a model of becoming more and more like a traditional like award show, right? It's like we figured out we can't lean in to like our organic,
Mm-hmm.
milady culture, and therefore we have to borrow like componentry.
What is the organic milady culture? Explain it to me.
Milady, I'll send
Uh,
you a gift. Don't worry. I'll
or
send you like a know
or
your meme link later
transfer
on.
knowledge.
Uh,
Okay, through GIF.
yeah.
Okay,
Um, uh,
GIF
yeah,
Keely. Okay,
I mean, to me, I would say it would seem almost like the like they figure out that polish will come from borrowing from adjacent media industries.
yeah. So I accept the counter reading, and I think that that still
Or maybe
holds
that's just
true.
a relief that we're finally doing that.
That we are finally letting go of it, or that.
That we're recognizing that like there is something to be gained in borrowing from
Mhm.
the traditional
Yes,
legacy media.
yes, but see,
Which is
like, but
not the same as games coming into its own. Games coming into its own would be this becoming, I think, even more inscrutable, right?
yes, I I'm with you 80% of the way. So it's absolutely true that they no, but the games industry. So the games industry has gone through this transition in terms of how it thinks of itself, how it operates, and the position it takes on, as an industry. Like, and we had this conversation about the ESA, for instance, and how they have a set of values. When a streamer playing a Blizzard game says or does something inappropriate, like how quickly does a publisher react in after a government says that you can't do that, and do they therefore reduce a streamer's freedom of speech in some ways to not piss off some government where they want to distribute and sell their games? The music industry, the film industry, while they are of course mainstream industries culturally, they also have a subset where people have very distinct political views and they communicate them accordingly. In music in particular, it's there's always an agenda. Even at the level of a Taylor Swift, is it commoditized? Yes, but it's also sort of a voice of a generation in so many ways, right? And so the games industry similarly occupies those spaces. They have just been only speaking to themselves. As they become more mainstream, they have to necessarily borrow the language and vernacular from film and TV and music to kind of accustom themselves, but also build up their own repertoire of what they're the fuck about, right? And that I think was much more present in this episode of the Game Awards than it was previously. It is much more a bigger party. It's a much more diverse crowd than I see everywhere else. Are they kind of harder on the eyes collectively? Yeah, absolutely. It's like it's just, and I don't mean that as to say like everybody is ugly. I'm saying it's a repertoire. They're just people who have a creative vision, and they're just, oh, and now I'm on a stage, totally unexpected. So it has an authenticity that arguably the film and music industry have lost a long time ago. Like, big fan of Cardi B and Nicki Minaj, but tell me what part is still human and actual made out of meat, right? I mean, they become like icons bigger than themselves. So
I am not even going to
respond
get
to
into
that, Blaine.
parsing that statement.
Let's go. It's my point is only like the games industry is growing up, and this is one of the ways that it's doing it, right? It's a Yeah, it's not.
Okay.
It's
You know
like
what?
a
We'll
teenage
come.
period.
I will. Great. 50 years in, we're getting there. Um, you know what? I think this will be a topic we can just keep coming back to. This is a cow that will forever be here to milk. I do think it is worth noting in the context
Mm.
of a discussion about the Game Awards and legacy media stuff, right? That there was a historic sweep this year. So Claire Obscure Expedition 33 won 9 awards. This beat the prior record of 7, which was held by A Last of Us Season 2. And I was curious, Yost, or Last of
Mm.
Us Part 2, sorry. If I was looking at this comparatively to cinema, so take your hands off the keyboard. I was wondering if you could name the 3 films that, they've all 3 won the same number of awards, 11. What are the 3 films that hold the record for most Academy Awards ever received?
Pass.
You're not even going to try?
I don't know. Schindler's List. Did that one win like a bunch of them? That seems like one that would win a lot. It's like that's no, that's not. Is that not? That's not a good example. No. Okay.
Best special effects, Schindler's.
All right, we'll cut that out. We'll edit that out.
We're leaving that in, baby.
That's it.
Oh
Like
my god.
I
Oh my
felt
god,
that
that
I go
killed me.
I go with personal importance. So I
Okay,
figured like
so think of some. I'm gonna try, and it would be fun to watch you guess one more time. So these are
it's going
kind
great.
of big budget films, lots of special effects. At least 2 of them are.
Hmm.
Um, what else would you know? Films where like big audio, big visuals, like the kind of AAA releases of the nothing here is like smart.
Oh, you mean you're talking about like Star Wars or something, or like Iron Man or something, one of those? Did Iron
Wow.
Man
Okay,
win?
I'm
Was
just gonna. I think it's time to shoot the horse. All right. I don't. I'm gonna put you out of your misery. Um. So the most recent was in 2003. Lord of the Rings.
2003. You know how many years that's ago? Come on.
I know you were
I was
only
12.
12. Jinx. Lord of the Rings: Return of the King.
Okay.
Before that, then only 5 years earlier, a late '90s classic, Kate Winslet, Leonardo DiCaprio,
Oh, the boat one.
also known as Titanic. Yes.
Yes.
That won 11 Academy Awards. And then the third one is, I think, the most interesting, Ben Hur, 1959. The premise of Ben Hur was this imagined kind of, it was like a massive classical spectacle, right? At a time when Hollywood was worried about losing ground to television, which was like the new technology, right? I mean, television from 1950 to 1960 sees the fastest adoption of any technology in the history of modern technology. I believe, right? It goes from basically like single digits to 80% of US homes by the end of that decade, right? Like faster adoption than the personal computer, faster adoption than the internet. Maybe only the smartphone has
Mhm.
rivaled that kind of speed. And Ben Hur was the film industry's response, right? Which I just think is like an interesting parallel to consider in light of the way we talk about what's eating what, what's in competition, like that there's this like very at this point 60-year-old 65-year-old example of when cinema kind of went to bat for itself against what was considered to be the new media.
That's a lot of data, Lane. That's very helpful. It's also like 60-year-old data, right? But it's true. And the reason you brought that up is, of course, because these awards are some kind of indication of cultural relevance,
Yeah.
and how there is like Clair Obscur is now, I guess, the most relevant game ever in the industry based on that metric.
Yeah, at a time when the industry is highly fractured, right? There's market contraction, layoffs, high levels of consolidation, live service fatigue, like no one's, that what chooses to be what is gets chosen to sweep is actually this kind of odd, like I would wager that Grand Theft Auto won't win this many awards, you know?
Hmm.
Most likely. It's about this kind of art forward,
I
narrative
like I
rich,
like the over under on that one.
self consciously mature game title that somehow was handed almost every single damn award at the show.
Well, I recognize the volume, and there's this odd tension in the awards that it won. Right, it was both game of the year and indie game of the year.
Yeah, there was a lot of griping about that on Blue Sky that I saw. That is this, what is our definition of indie? How elastic is it? Um,
Yeah,
you
so
know,
that's
because it
that's an odd one. Like it becomes
yeah
very taste specific.
yes,
And could you do like film of the year and indie production of the year? Does that live in
that
Hollywood?
lives somewhere else. That lives in like Sundance or
Hmm.
at film festivals and things like that, right? And there are places like that within games where those sorts of things. There's the IGF, right, the Independent
Hmm.
Games
Hmm.
Awards,
Hmm.
or Indiecade or things like that. But yeah, games is a kind of, I don't know. It's always been a bit hybrid in terms of these boundaries, and they've always
100%.
been a little artificial in their own right.
It's they're uh, expressions of the industry culture, right? Like because I mean, more to the point, like stick with the numbers. Unlike the Oscars, which started off as sort of like this guild of filmmakers kind of socializing the idea that one of their movies should win this year, and then maybe next year's your movie, and then they handed it off basically to like an accounting firm to do the math, right? And it became sort of this secret thing where, if you recall, like a few years ago, they read the wrong name at movie of the year or whatever,
Oh yeah.
and it's like, but it's because they have actual infrastructure. It's like it's a real process, and it's very serious, and people really like, it's like it's almost like real voting, so to say, right? To the extent that that's still real. But the difference with the games industry is that it's mostly journalists that pick these things, and like the audience has a much smaller voice in all this. Seemingly, I don't know exactly the math on that, but it's a little bit less sophisticated or like accounting driven. It's a little bit more taste, and whoever says it loudest. You wonder always if like sponsors to the show get to win at least one thing. If
Hmm.
PlayStation, I mean, not to discredit anybody, but let's say like PlayStation or Microsoft, but this Xbox sponsors Jeff for a couple $1 million. Does that sort of implicitly get them like at least one crappy award for something they can put
I
on
mean,
their
that's quite
box?
an accusation.
No, I'm
Just
saying like you don't know, like there's no transparency in the process. Yes, no, no. What I'm saying is Jeff is lying. No, of course not. It's just like it's a relatively unsophisticated process that
so
raises
it's yeah.
questions.
So it seems based on uh, global gaming media outlets and influencers. Whew.
Yeah, okay. You know,
Um, and
so
then is most of
aren't you
it,
one? Aren't you an
and then
influencer?
fan voting accounts for like 10%, which seems marginally statistically inconsequential. Yeah, I mean, so here's the difference also between something like the Oscars, which is the Oscars, I do believe has a mandate that they include kind of cultural critics. So I knew an academic who was like included in the voting for the Oscars, right? Like I think
Mhm.
that's a thing that it's not just other directors and members of the industry. There's kind of it draws from the entire kind of like kind of intellectual and social and cultural infrastructure of the space,
Mm.
and not just from kind of one vertical of what that industry represents.
For instance, so that's kind of my point, right? So that
Yeah.
that process is a little unclear, which I would only attribute that to its like relative nascent state. Like it needs to like let's fast forward 10, 20 years, and then see what it looks like then. But it's better than the Spike Awards. It's a huge step up from that. If you recall those, do you recall those?
Um, I don't,
Okay.
for probably obvious reasons. I was not. I mean, I know that what I have heard of the Spike Awards. I couldn't tell you that I ever
You
wanted to know
you
what
just
they were
recited
for,
the number of Oscars won by Lord of the Rings: Return of the King in 2003, which is actually the first year that the Spike Awards
which
were.
is the same number as Titanic and Ben Hur. That
Yeah.
wasn't
Oh,
complicated to retain.
and here's another number for you, Lane. I looked it up. Actually, Schindler's List was nominated 12 times for an Oscar and won seven of them. So it was quite close. I'm gonna ride this pony all the way to
Same number
Christmas.
of awards as Last of Us Part Two.
Yeah. So I think we just uncovered a massive conspiracy theory here.
Mm.
But so the Spike Awards came and went from 2003 to 2013. It ran for about 10 years, and then the TGAs took over. You know, is it fair
What
to
kind of
compare the
things
two?
did the Spike Awards? Was it like best beef jerky? Best...
That was yeah. The beef jerky award goes to, this is much more like a televised thing. I don't think it was a standalone effort. I mean, it was obviously part of Spike TV, which is this larger sort of like was it sort of an MTV but for games. And so it seemed like it was a little bit less credible in that sense, although a lot of enthusiasm for it. The fact that the TJ is separate from any kind of main channel, I think, makes sense. But you could, in rough outlines, you could draw a comparison between the two, the Spike Awards, and as a first iteration, the Game Awards as a second one. It's like it's a big improvement. It stepped up. It became more mature in some ways. What's the next version of this, right? Will it get adopted into something else? Like does whatever the entertainment universe of America, whatever that is, the entertainment oligarchy also now take as a member the TGAs or the games industry in some capacity. Like I find myself constantly at these things where you go to like the Paley Center here in New York. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's all these media executives, and then occasionally they invite some games people, and it's a big to do, and it's very prestigious, and you get all the CEOs from all these companies that make lots of money. And gaming is always a bit of a, oh, that's interesting kind of component, even though it makes more money than most of them, right? And so it's, in that regard, interesting to see the up and coming of the award show as like a one-to-one comparison to traditional media.
Yeah.
So yes, I think the sweep for Claire Obscure was interesting. It exposes some of its like weaknesses, because 13 and some contradictory awards makes no sense on paper, maybe in practice, but it's a little.
Nine. Nine.
9 awards.
9 awards.
That's so many awards. But it's a great game. It's beautiful. It's unique. Certainly it has a heartfelt set of people. What I liked about that is that they came in and they're like, yeah, I mean, this is probably more of an accusation to the games industry. This is they during their speeches, they would thank people for putting game development videos on YouTube, because they started making this game without knowing how to make games, and then clean up at the award show. So it's like, okay, so what does that say about all the $1 billion that we've just spent investing as large companies with all the resources and all the talent? Like, really? Like, they win this stuff? That's crazy. What's wrong with the institutionalized game makers? Like, why can't they do better? Or why don't they get it right? Like, what's missing in
Mm,
their
mm,
organization?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really more of a reflection on the incumbents than anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
I think
fun.
that's a nice kind of spot to end it on.
Let's end it there.
On that note, Yost, you want to get to some pones and owns and then let our listeners get on with the holiday season?
I think that that's probably the right move.
Do you have a pone?
Yes.
Would you like to share it?
Oh, you want me to go first? Okay, fine. My poem this week is not very exciting, but I feel strongly that it needs to be said. So Amazon sold off a game to Ubisoft, and it's a and the game. We talked about this.
Which game?
March of Giants.
Mar- I know the game. March of Giants.
Didn't we talk about this one? March? So basically,
No,
you
we
are.
have never
It's a
talked about
four
this.
v four tactical multiplayer game, started by, developed by Amazon, and now so Amazon is clearly changing its stance on gaming. We talk about Netflix today, but Amazon is sort of in a similar ship. What are they doing? And so this was one of their most ambitious, fanciest, prettiest games they had. This whole design agenda behind it. Here's how we want you to feel about it, and all these like colors and shapes. And it's just sad that it goes from the frying pan into the flame. Like, is it better off with Ubisoft? I don't know. Does it deserve a shot? Probably. But so it's just like, so it's a pwn in that just I don't think that that's the kind of ownership that it deserves. I think it deserves more. And so it's just one of these vignettes. It's like this sort of trading IP and looking for like a deal. Also, Ubisoft is trading at $6 a share. Like, they shouldn't be buying anything. They should be paying
Yeah,
off
like
their
what are you
debt.
what are you paying this for? With
So I'm
you
just
know,
like, all around, I'm just
like cereal box
unconvinced.
tops. Like how are you funding any purchases right now?
So maybe they're selling French bread out of a truck somewhere, but it doesn't seem like a smart move all around. But I'd love to be wrong. I'd love for this game to flourish and bloom. I like the vision, is what I'm saying, and I'm not sure that the ownership is going to help it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's my pwn.
That's your
Merry
pone.
Christmas to one and all on that one.
We're gonna leave on a high note. So my own
Hmm.
is to shout out the Video Game History Foundation. Earlier this week, on I believe Monday, they dropped a big announcement of a massive preservation win where they have managed to recover over 100 previously lost Sega Channel ROMs, plus internal documentation that finally explains how the service works. If you've never heard of it before, Sega Channel was it was like this 1990s service that would allow you to basically connect your Sega to your cable distribution infrastructure. Like, you would literally screw in a coax, and that you could kind of like subscribe to being able to receive kind of like it was kind of like one of the earliest experiments in console based digital distribution, right? So that you would be able to access games in a sense, kind of remotely, or the data itself was coming from elsewhere. Sega Channel is one of those kind of like ghost in the machine objects in the history of games. There's never been a lot of information about it, lots of kind of quirky, nostalgic memories about it, but no one's ever been able to do substantial historical work on it because there just wasn't anything to talk about. The Video Game History Foundation was able to basically lock down those relationships. So they were able to get a trove of stuff from someone who worked, I believe, on the project. So they have not just like over 100 ROMs, they have all of this internal documentation. So all of these marketing reports, all of this kind of internal explanation about how the service was supposed to work. So thanks to the VGHF, we have this access to lost exclusives, to cut down limited versions, unreleased prototypes, even experiments like how the Genesis web browser is all of that is kind of now preserved alongside internal planning documents that show how Sega was trying to think about this idea of games as a service, kind of in a very early network model. So this is a rare convergence of like former Sega staff, community archivists, and a lot of serious technical work, history defining trove of stuff. Someone will now be able to write a dissertation about Sega Channel, and or a book, literally because of this amount of material. So absolutely massive win, and a huge shout out to our friends over at the Video Game History Foundation, chiefly Phil Salvador, their library director, and Frank Cafaldi, the big guy, the guy in charge.
Very cool. You're always so like archivally minded.
That's part of the shtick
It's part of the shtick.
Of the two of us.
No, I get it. Like I like my numbers, but it's the it's like nothing excites you more than like a well organized, alphabetized bunch of old stuff. And you're like, wow, look at this. I am excited. I can't wait to read it. So often, if I find that's very helpful. It's just like this is the labor of love that I can't see. Like, why would you do this? And I'm so happy that there's people to do that.
Why would you do what you do?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not a rational thing. So I love that. I'm gonna go buy some expensive drinks to take to your party.
Amazing, cool.
Anything you'd like me to bring?
No,
Just
bring whatever you want to drink. It'll be that the drinking is the potluck part of the.
Do people still drink Goldschlager? Is that still hip?
I have some Goldschlager that's been sitting at my apartment since I threw this party like 3 years ago, so we're good on Goldschlager.
So what you're saying is extra Goldschlager. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Coming right up.
Maybe some Fireball,
Ooh.
All right, man. I will see you later this week, live and in person. As for our listeners, we are on hiatus until the new year. We've got a special little interim episode we will drop in January. That's an interview with a new pod friend. But until then, we'll be back with your kind of weekly dose of nonsense and bullshit coming in late January. With that, everybody, we are out. Good night and good game. Unboxing, Play and Profit for the Gaming Curious is an independent production by Joost van Dreunen and Lane Nooney. Our producer is Keaton Ireland. Our logo was designed by Moira Zhang. For more from Unboxing, subscribe to our newsletter at buttondown.com/unboxingpodcast. Unboxing episodes can be found on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and wherever else you get your content.